Gracie Leonard,
Scott Eady, Fisher Leonard, Asher Redcomb.
Women's rights and their waves of responsibility.
It was 1942, during World War II, and I was one of about 3,000 women serving with the U.S. Navy in the waves. Women accepted for volunteer emergency service. I was delivering a stack of decrypted dispatches to Admiral Nimitz' office in the Pentagon.
Do you happen to be related to Mary Sears?
Yes, she's my older sister.
One day the country will learn how much it owes to your sister Mary.
Prior to 1948, women were denied the right to serve in the armed forces. Traditional gender roles argued that a woman's place was in the home, that they were a distraction to the men in the workplace, and that they were incapable of performing the same physical jobs as a man, while also making the military look honorable. Then, December 7, 1941, a day that was supposed to be a quiet Sunday, changed everything.
The chilling words from Franklin D. Roosevelt that reached the largest audience in the history of radio.
This morning, the attack of Pearl Harbor and the severe bombing of Pearl Harbor by Army planes, undoubtedly Japanese. It's no joke, it's a real war.
The Japanese have drawn first blood. The attack was a complete surprise.
Traveling in the Pacific Ocean with enemy submarines nearby might be too risky. Will I be safe? But I've waited so long to be allowed out on a boat as a woman. I can't bear to rely on young sailors to bring me back my research samples. They are usually destroyed and unusable once they bring them back. They aren't concerned about my work. It's my right to be out here on this boat, and I have a responsibility to finish what I've started.
When Mary came home from her research trip, she found that America joining the war was a pivotal turning point in women's rights and responsibilities.
Congress gathered for an intense debate on multiple perspectives that lasted for months and ended on July 30th, 1942, with the signing of the Waves Instrument.
In this emergency of war, I see a necessity to free up male personnel for frontline duty. There is an increasing need for personnel to fill non-combat roles. Giving women the right and responsibility to serve is the answer.
If women join, we will have to make new accommodations for them. It could disrupt our order and efficiency.
And women's safety is a question. Do we really want our daughters being put in harm's way?
Women are the best solution to the labor shortage. With their help, we'll have more researchers, scientists, and hands and minds.
Women will lose their femininity by joining the military. They must continue to project a lady-like appearance. America could look vulnerable.
Preposterous. First they want to vote, and now they want to be soldiers. Can they even physically perform these jobs?
They could be allowed to serve as long as it is just a wartime effort.
Women will have the right and responsibility to serve our country. If they want to serve, we will let them serve. A naval reserve is hereby, a women's reserve is hereby established, which will be a branch of the naval reserve.
Initially, the waves were limited to clerical and administrative responsibilities. But as the war progressed, these expanded to cover a wider range of duties. It took great women such as Eleanor Roosevelt to help women grow in these responsibilities.
Frankly, life in the armed services is hard and uncomfortable, but I think women can stand up under that type of just as well as a man. It makes me unhappy to hear of gentlemen who oppose women's full participation in the military services, when there's so much they can do. Even the British are using women to their full capacities.
Yes, Eleanor. This departure from traditional gender roles will be a hard one, as the women of our country step forward to contribute their skills and dedication to the nation's defense.
If women are going to work with classified or sensitive information, they must be an integral part of the Naval Reserve, not supposedly to it.
Now that women have the rights into what was heretofore a man's world, we also had a responsibility to prove ourselves step by step so we could keep those rights. This is exactly what happened to me, Mary Sears. Turns of events in the war led to a great need for me to pioneer women in my field of expertise, oceanography. So I enlisted as a wave.
November 20th, 1943. The Admiral Nimitz was targeting the Japanese-held islands of Tarawa to put Japan within U.S. bomber range. The Japanese weren't just there to win. They intended to kill as many Americans as possible and then die. America was newly in the Pacific, and Admiral Nimitz led a frontal assault with outdated and inaccurate charts that resulted to difficulties in the amphibious landings.
Sir, the landing vessels are stuck on the coral reef.
Those amphibious boats need at least 5 feet of water to navigate.
There's only 3 feet, sir. Our brave, courageous boys are jumping out of the sides of the landing vessels and swimming to shore.
This is a disaster. Those boys are under constant enemy machine gun fire. This battle may haunt the Navy for the rest of the war.
We had a devastating frontal assault and amphibious beach landing on the islands of Tarawa. 1,500 Marines and soldiers dead and wounded. Outdated maps and charts were a contributing factor to this devastating loss to the American people.
After Tarawa, I feel I have a responsibility to help this growing movement of women's rights in wartime oceanographic science. I feel I owe it to the men that died on Tarawa that I never got a chance to save.
The unprecedented demand for oceanographic scientists will rise at the incoming tide. It is crucial for successful amphibious landings. Then, a Tarawa situation will never happen again. I feel I have a responsibility to the families of those soldiers to have up-to-date information and the best odds in every battle. I can barely get through these letters. Dear Admiral Nimitz, these frontal attacks by the Navy as at Tarawa are a tragic and unnecessary massacre of American lives. Admiral Nimitz, you murdered my son in Tarawa.
Mary Sears and her team worked in the Navy Hydrographic Office. She oversaw and grew her unit to over 400 people. Her reports and valuable contributions played an essential role to women's rights and provided crucial intelligence to the oceanographic warfare and the urgent ones ahead. She changed the course of the war in the Pacific theater as the United States inched closer to Japan and the last fortified stronghold of Okinawa.
Okinawa is our target, and we need to get on shore quickly without our forces being weakened. Inform Sears and her team at Hydro that they have 2 months to compile the report. I value her opinion more than ever.
Mary Sears, along with the extra help of her librarian, Mary Greer, compiled the report with urgency. The pressure was on.
I have recovered these charts that our American forces have captured of the island of Okinawa.
I will comb through Japanese field reports in the Library of Congress.
We've narrowed it down to 48 of 333 beaches that could be suitable landing sites, but we must continue to gather more data. Our accuracy will minimize casualties in extreme proportions.
Well, the time is finally here. 182,000 troops are counting on us.
Yes, America has fought our way over 3,500 miles in 3.5 years to get to this point. But my last minute calculations will put them on the beaches of the Gush. This will be a successful landing. I know it.
We've overcome many barriers in our rights as women.
I was working so hard for a common cause, I was hardly aware of any barriers. Just a responsibility to save as many soldiers' lives as I can.
Admiral Nimitz, 50,000 troops have safely landed ashore.
This amphibious campaign will be our opus, an orchestra tuned to perfection. Naval commanders have dreamed of of a landing like this since the beginning of our naval campaign.
Congratulations, sir.
We all owe it all to Mary Sears and her team at Hydro.
The battle for women's rights to join the armed forces began as a simple necessity to free up male personnel from frontline duty. But it became so much more when Mary Sears pioneered wartime oceanography by showing responsibility to her work despite the barrier of gender discrimination. She earned the respect and admiration from her male counterparts by challenging traditional gender roles.
Women's success and contribution to the war have brought forth a legislative milestone and growing movement in women's rights and gender equality. They broke barriers and reshaped the perception of women's capabilities.
In 1948, an important step for women's rights was passed by Congress, the Women's Armed Service Integration Act. From then on, women could serve as more permanent and regular members in a more inclusive and diverse military.
Women like Mary Sears and the Waves were pioneers in the ever-growing movement of women's rights and wartime oceanographic science. They broke barriers and paved the way for future generations of women to pursue careers in STEM.
Their invaluable contributions to the war effort changed the outcome of many battles in the war and eventually the Allied victory. We salute their efforts and responsibilities for women's rights.
Thank you, Mary Sears and the Waves.